How you doing, guys? Thought it'd be ideal to go through a little bit of a list here as to some of the cheaper guys you might want to bring into your squad this week. Just be aware that a lot of these guys aren't really good cash cows, but I know some of you will need to bring someone in cheap so you can do a second trade or a third trade or whatever you need to do. So just thought I'd cover that in this one anyway. And if we're looking at guys like, Lanu, Stefano, all these guys you kind of held, then I'd suggest that they're not, you might have traded them out along the way. They're probably not a trade-in at this stage. In terms of anyone in this squad that we have here, Tyson Gamble's someone at 323. I don't think he's kind of worth bringing in. You might make a little bit of cash out of him, but he does have that really low score in his rolling average at the moment. So you might get some okay scores out of him over the next few weeks. He could get dropped at any point, but then you're looking to sort of move him on. So is it worth trading him in now to then trade him out a little bit later? And I don't think so. And following on from my previous video about probably saving a lot of your cash outs in terms of getting in those really cheap guys that are playing 1 or 2 games, picking them up in round 17. I think that's the smarter option. As I said, there'll be a few people that kind of need to pick some cheaper guys, and we'll go through that here. So, Tommy Opacek is someone that we didn't cover in the last one, and I think you can probably hold off on him. He'll be close to a keeper level, but that lowest score on the weekend was his first low score, and it kind of scared me a little bit, so I'd probably be steering clear of him. When you've got guys like Jack Bird and stuff who are a little bit, only slightly more expensive, I think are going to be better over the long term. Especially if we see the Eels start to struggle a little bit like they did last year. That will be interesting to see. In terms of someone like Matty Lodge here at 499, I think he's just a bit too expensive to bring into your squad. He'll probably score the odd 45, 50, but again, he's someone you're gonna have to trade out again. So if you're picking up a lot of these guys, the goal is probably to pick up a couple of decent scores, but not have to trade them out. So we're probably looking at a fair bit cheaper in this list here. Kamika is probably a little bit too late to pick him up. Kikau, remember when he was up in the 600s and everyone's like, he's a gun. No, he's not. Dufty, I had someone ask me about Maddie Dufty, and they said they're going to bring him in over Gutho. So we'll jump in and have a look at him at 489k. And you just got to look at his previous scores before he got injured. So he had one really big one with 78, but before that was 24, 27, 18, and 30 when he obviously went off just after half time. But scores are really up and down. He's got a few 30s in there, a couple of 2 scores over 50, and that's 78. So really, you're seeing games there where he's getting a couple of tries or 1 try. There's 1 try there for 24. There's a try in there for there's 2 tries for 46. So nothing special for Dufty, and I don't think he's going to be a keeper. So 489, you might be able to get a couple of decent scores out of him, but then you'll have to trade him out. I just don't think it's worth doing that at this stage of the season. It might be right earlier when you got a little bit, a few more trades to burn or utilize, but at this stage, I don't think it's a very smart option. People have mentioned Kerr. I just think he's too expensive. Farnworth, if you're looking for a potential keeper in the centres, then at a cheaper price, then Farnworth might be your man there. At 478, just be aware that there's the odd game he's going to get the 25, for example. There's 2 before that, 55 and 50, and he has 174, but he has no scores over 40 other than 3. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 6, 9 games, and only 3 scores over 40. Over 40. So keep that in mind. Obviously, centres are a bit more up and down, but I just don't think that he's the ultimate keeper level centre. He does have the dual position, which is cool, but yeah, I just feel like there's a few better options in those centres at this stage. If you're looking at someone like Farnworth, guys, if you're looking at someone a lot cheaper in your price there, just skip through the video to find that. Sorry, I'm not doing timestamps at the moment, just a bit busy with work, and then just got to get all these out for you guys. So Bradman Best in there at a little bit cheaper as well. I'd probably say Farnworth is a slightly better option than Best at the moment. Knights aren't playing too well, even though they got the win on the weekend. Niokore, the question with him is, will he get a spot back in the centres? He's playing front row this week and should score pretty well, like in the 40s, you'd imagine. But can he get back into his centre role? And you see he's got a nice 39 average at a 462k price. Is pretty nice to see, but he'd have to take Wanga Blake's spot back. Finucane, people are talking about, I just don't think he's averaging well enough at his price point, even though he's getting big minutes. So I would steer clear. Gee, the Ferguson one was an interesting one, wasn't it, with him getting dropped? A few people probably had him still, and he was kind of scoring okay in fantasy, but unfortunately not. Kelly, someone that is interesting at this point. of proceedings at 441k. I just don't think he's averaging well enough. The Titans aren't doing well. If they start improving, I think you could probably pick him up, but until then, I would not. Jackson Ford, someone at 439k that people are talking about, and my question will be how long until he loses his spot. So he's got two really good scores, obviously, playing 60 minutes, so 56 and 54. If you wanted to pick him up, you probably could. He's obviously got a really low break even after a couple of good scores, right? But in the grand scheme of things, you're going to have to trade him out. Jack de Bellin could come into 13 role. There's a few things that could happen, and yes, he's had some decent scores, and he's shown in the past when he plays 60 minutes or 50 minutes that he can score pretty well. But how long does that last? And that's my kind of worry. And if you feel like you've got a lot of trades and you can utilize a couple of good scores over the next few weeks, then maybe you can do it, but I probably wouldn't personally. Stefano there, if you're holding him, awesome work. Bromwich, you're not touching. Philip Sammy, you're not touching. Herbert, Eisenhuth. So Eisenhuth is someone who will score well this week, but then go back to the bench. Alvaro, same thing, he'll score pretty normal, I'd imagine, this week if you own him. Crossland at 404k, I think he's just gone too expensive now. Saifidi will play some decent minutes this week, but won't be worth it. So, I mean, guys, there's a lot of guys that are in here that aren't really worth your time. Like Seyfarth, he's averaging 34. He's up to 372k. Just a bit too expensive to bring in, even though he should score really well this week in the lock roll. Tex, I wouldn't be touching with Ponga coming back. Sorensen should play some more minutes this week and do well, but again, you're not going to get the cash out of him. Jackson Torpenny with the Dogs could be an interesting one in round 14 if he ends up keeping the number 9 jersey. That'll be interesting to see with him, or I think. Did anyone find out what happened to Dietz, if he had a decent injury or not? Let me know in the comments if you heard anything on that. That would be helpful. Aaron Clark, he had a really big game, but should go back to, he was averaging 25 before that, so might play a really big role again this week, but you'd imagine he goes back to his normal role and not worth bringing in. We're getting to those couple of the cheaper ones now, guys, and McIntyre's should get a big minute role this week. Cooper Johns will play again, but again, he's only getting that 1 or 2 weeks. Arthur's, he's already a bit too expensive to pick up. Mbai, a few people are talking about, so he's obviously scored a little bit better over the last couple of weeks. Was a bit cheaper, which would have been helpful. But if he keeps his spot, then he should make a fair bit, a decent amount of money. Might be able to get him to 450. But again, is that worth bringing him in, getting him to 450, and then having to trade him out? Because he's got 2 solid scores in a row, and you can expect scores like that with some decent tackles, a few kicks, a few runs, bits and pieces like that. If he can average high 30s, he's about 100k undervalued, which is cool. But and he covers center and wing fullback. So if you need someone like that, actually owned by 6% of teams in the top 100. So that's pretty interesting. Definitely in my book. Wouldn't have expected that. So a few people are playing that role. He's there for cover. You can get a 30 or 40 out of him and make a little bit of cash, I think. So that's that there. Asiata's getting a 13 role, but he's never been really fantasy relevant. Tommy Tillow, he's that cheaper price point now. But I just don't think it's worth bringing in. I don't think he's going to make money. You know what I mean? I think you could score okay random weeks, but then the other ones will hit a 15, which is not good. Tyrone May just won't get enough time in this role. Then you're moving along the line. What else we got? Palaszczuk we've spoken about already, and not someone to bring in. Albert Kelly at 301k, I think, is probably a more solid option. Obviously, on the weekend, didn't play as good, you say, in terms of actual footy potential wise, but 44 and a 37, you're not complaining about those scores, and I think he can keep up an average of close to 40 going forward. And if he does, then you're making 150, 200k. So if you think he maintains his spot on the side, then he could be someone that you could bring in and then trade out around 17. If he scores 40 for the next bunch of weeks, he gets to about 450k. So what do you got? 13, 14, 15, 16. You got 4 weeks of him, I think. And then you'd be moving him on at 17 or close to that, 17, 18, depending on how many trades you got. So he's an interesting one that I think you could probably take a bet on, and a few people have over the last few weeks. So yeah, that's that there. It looks like surely they can't bring Milford back over him again. To drop him 3 times and bring him back, I think is pretty silly. But yeah, can he keep his spot? Gamble comes back. Who would you drop, Gamble or Kelly? I think you probably drop Gamble first. That's my opinion. And he only really got Brody Koff to come back, so Kelly's probably fairly safe. Blake, we're not touching. Let's talk about Gerard Biel. So has never been super fantasy relevant. He's obviously really, really cheap right now, 287. So that's something to think about with him at the moment. But who if you're looking at their lineup as well, who's out, right? So Birds moved to the second row spot, but that'll only be for a week, right? Tariq Sims will come back. Lomax is back in the next couple of weeks, so Bill will be out of the team. I know everyone's excited. He got 50 on the weekend. Beautiful. It's just all in base. That's great, but look at his previous scores for one. Anyone see the last 50? There it is, 2018. So there you go. Round 19, 2018, he got that. You can tell no one's picking him up, really. Top 5,000, there's 1 or 2 people in there with 0.1%. All the maths whizzes, let me know how many people that is. We'll make money this week, score okay, but Lomax will come back. Lomax and Bird are their centers, remember? So I can't believe he's owned by 1.6% of people. Anyway, I think he's going to get a few people as a trap. It's a trap. All right, Roberts, no. Stay away from Roberts, please. Cody Ramsey, no. God, he's so cheap. There's a reason he's cheap, remember? Think of that. Bully Moore should score okay with some extra minutes, but I wouldn't touch him. Chris Lewis, no. And then I suppose you got some of the cheaper guys. Sasagi, is he actually playing this week? 45, but he'll lose his spot fairly shortly. Salmon will get some time. And then you got a couple other guys. Hetherington scored okay last week. Booth, Jones. Yeah, we'll talk about Jones. Brodie Jones. So someone that people are thinking about at the moment with Frizzell being out for 6 weeks. So someone's going to have to benefit from it. And I think what's going to happen is I think Kurt Mann will eventually move back to the 6th role. I think they're just giving him less minutes because he's coming back from injury. So Watson should move to obviously playing the 13 or off the bench. Brodie Jones might move onto the interchange. It might even happen this week. They might move Barnett to the edge where he's played a lot of edge, right, and done pretty well in that position. Brodie Jones back to the bench where he's just going to continue scoring what he was. Kurt Mann might be okay moving back to 6, Watson back to 13. So if you think that's a chance of happening, then these are the scores you're going to expect. 5, 11, 5, 24, 13. And any chance of money making, even if he scores well in this 1 week, is, yes, you might get a good score and it might improve your rank this week, but then you got a red dot or a guy that's ruining your scores, or you have to play him 1 week and he gets 10. He's not going to make you money, and I feel like it's just an early cash out, which I, as I said in the previous videos, would be staying clear of until round 17. Shawnee Blore, that kind of chances of him playing bigger minutes this week is gone out the window with Lucy getting off. So excited about that. That's about it, I think. Dunster. Yeah, so Fergo's been dropped. Dunster comes into play, and it's like, well, how long does Fergo get dropped for? Does Dunster keep his spot? Is he actually going to make a lot of money on the wing for the Eels? Probably not. These are all things to think about, and probably way too many red flags that I've already mentioned in 2 seconds to actually have him worth picking up at this stage. So, as you can tell, only a couple of guys that I probably half suggest picking up. Musgrove is not an option. Monet, Jeremiah, no. Campbell, people have talked about, but he's probably only going to get 1 game, maybe 2 games. He'd have to have an injury to Brimson or something like that for him to get a lot of game time. Obviously, there's chat that he had like 16 tackle breaks on the weekend and did really well. So let's just see how he plays. If you really want to do it, go for it. He's wing fullback and half dual position, whatever that means. Really, he's only getting 1 game at this stage. Young fella, I wouldn't be picking him up. So yeah, that's it. That's gone through all those cheaper guys. I hope this helps, guys, with you making decisions around the cheaper guys. If that helps you bring in a gun, then albeit go for it. But guys like Kelly is probably the only real option, I think, at this stage. So let me know if you enjoyed this, guys. Please hit subscribe. Really appreciate that. We're getting close to 3,000 subs. Please hit like. It helps to get out to a bigger audience. I know we've only got like half of my viewers are subscribed. So get around that, guys. We'll catch you in the next one. See ya.